I hereby call this annual town meeting to order. Good evening and welcome to the 2024 annual town meeting. I'm Bobby Betzold, your town moderator, and I want to thank you for being here tonight. To the mothers here, I hope you all had a great Mother's Day this weekend, and thank you for everything that you do. Before we get started, I would like to ask you to please silence your cell phones out of everyone's respect here. Emergency exits are accessible through all four corners of the gymnasium, and restrooms are available through either of the front doors into the lobby or into the hallway. This evening serves as my first town meeting as your town moderator, and I greatly appreciate the trust you have placed in me to be a part of this time-honored tradition. I am very thankful for the tremendous support and guidance provided to me by my predecessor and several others in preparation for this evening. I have the utmost respect for this position, and I promise to always do my best to maintain a fair and open role in this process. As one of the oldest and truest forms of democratic government, town meeting is the opportunity for all registered voters of the town of Hatfield to directly participate in the decisions that will impact our town in the upcoming year and for years to come. As has been past practice, if you are not a registered voter, I ask you to please sit in the bleachers in the back right, my left, to assure that there is no potential interference or confusion with deliberation or potential votes throughout the evening. This evening, we will discuss and vote on numerous topics and issues. Most will likely be things that most of us here agree on, and some are likely to have more conversation, questions, and possible differing opinions. This is both okay and encouraged, as this is your opportunity to be a part of the decision-making process. However, as we navigate this process, I ask that we all remember our common goal: preserving and doing the best for the town that we all call home. I ask that you respect the process, respect that others may have a different opinion or view on an article, and most importantly, respect everyone that is here this evening. We all arrived here tonight as neighbors, and when we are done, we will all leave as neighbors. A few notes on procedures for tonight's meeting, which will largely be the same as past years. If you would like to speak, please make your way to the microphone at front when acknowledged. We do have a roving mic if anyone is unable to come up to the mic. When speaking for the first time, I would ask you to please state your name and street that you live on. Please remember to address your comments forward to the stage and not to the audience. As has been past practice, I would ask that you please limit your comments on a specific article to twice per that article to allow everyone to have a chance to speak. Also, as has been the case in the past, if we are approaching 10 o'clock and still have a ways to go, we will need to reconvene out of respect for everyone's time. The mornings are getting earlier and the evenings are getting later. For everyone's benefit, I would now like to introduce our town officials who are up here tonight and some who may not be able to make it, but have been a part of the process. When I call your name, please raise your hand so everyone knows who you are. Our town clerk in her first town meeting, Elena Wilcox. Assistant town clerk in the back, Karen Karowski. Town council, Tom Mullen. Select Board Chair Diana Zinel, Greg Gagnon, and Ed Jaworski. Raise your hand, Ed. Raise your hand, Ed. Finance Committee Chair Darrell Williams, Kim Baker, Sean Barry, Diane Brzezowski, and John Wilkes Jr. Town Administrator in her final annual town meeting for the town of Hatfield, Marlene Mashonsky. Thank you, Marlene, for all of your years of service and dedication to the town of Hatfield. The hours that you have put in are greatly appreciated. DPW Director, Phil Genovese. School Superintendent, Dr. Connor Driscoll. I've also asked Dr. Driscoll to please sit on the floor here tonight in case there are any questions that do come up. He will not take part in any votes, as been the past practice. Assistant Town Clerk and Treasurer who is unable to make it tonight, Tammy Wendelowski. Town Accountant, also unable to make it, Elizabeth Bracchia. And Executive Assistant, Karen Brodeur. Also here this evening to provide information or answer questions as necessary, School Committee Chair, Christy Boudreau. Planning Board Chair, Stephanie Slish. Fire Chief, Bob Flaherty. And Police Chief, Mike Dukoshek. Now, before we begin, Diana has a brief announcement that she would like to make.
Sure. First, I just want to echo Bobby's comments about a couple of things. First, welcome, Bobby. We are really grateful to have you here. And as I said earlier, I suspect tonight is the beginning of a very long career for Bob in this role. And also, welcome to Elena in her first role as town clerk. Also, really just doing a great job so far. I just want to elaborate a little bit on thanking Marlene Mashansky. Marlene has given decades of service to this town. I was actually on the board that hired her the first time, way back. And I don't think anyone realizes the dedication that she has to this town, the hours that she puts in. This being her last town meeting, I really did want to really thank her for everything she's done for this board, for this town, for its citizens. So I would just like one more round of applause for Marlene. People may have noticed in our town report that there's a few special messages. And I just wanted to recognize tonight the passing of Stanley Psyche Sadowski earlier this year. A talented craftsman by trade, Psyche served as the town building inspector and enforcement officer from July 1994 until his retirement in June of 2014. Stanley continued to visit Town Hall from time to time, and he stayed on top of town happenings with his coffee crew most mornings. I actually visited some of those. They were lively. In every sense of the word, Stanley was a family man. While he loved the time he spent working for the town, he readily admitted that life was better when he had more time to spend with his family, on the golf course and traveling. Psyche's favorite thing was to spend time with his granddaughter, who he adored. Psyche is sadly missed, but he will never be forgotten. So we will be presenting his daughters with a copy of this town report. And then the dedication of the town report this year is to the Hatfield Book Club. The Hatfield Book Club was founded in 1904, held their first meeting, actually January 12th of 1904, with 20 members. Currently, the club has approximately 24 active members. The club had its largest membership of 82 in 1982. Proceeds from club fundraisers benefit Hatfield Public Schools, as well as other community programs and services. The club has been entertaining audiences with their annual holiday craft fair since 1989. They hold various fundraisers throughout the year, such as bake sales, game nights, craft events, and card parties. In the late 1950s to mid-1960s, the club held fashion shows that were very popular. In 1969, the book club began making donations to support the Hatfield Public Library's summer reading program, and they continue to do so to today. Other donations over the years have been to the Sidney Smith Toy Fund, Smith Academy Band, and the Hatfield Senior Center. In addition, the club grants annual awards. The first, originally named Home Economics and Household Arts, was changed to Literary Award in 1961, and they give a prize for the school-speaking declamations. The club celebrated their 120th anniversary in 2024. So with much gratitude for the club's lasting dedication to the community, the 2023 town report is dedicated to them. We appreciate and recognize the ongoing commitment and dedication to Hatfield by Hatfield Book Club members. And I believe we have some members here tonight. Avis Fusick. Hi, Avis. If you want to stand up, that would be so nice. Amanda Zigmont. Claudia Copper. Oh, they're all going to be over there. Jocelyn Molitor. Sherry Armstrong. Janice Garrett. And I'm so happy that Ruthie Kuit has joined us tonight. We do have a few copies just to give you. Thank you very much.
Yep, you start. That's okay. Thank you, Diana. With that said, let's begin. As in the past, we will use the consent agenda process to combine Articles 2 through 4, as these are general annual articles that allow for the town to operate and accept funds from the state, hold elections, and the treasurer to operate. Of course, as in the past, if there are any questions on any of them, that is fine.
Mr. Moderator,
Ms. Zinal.
I move the town take up Articles 2 through 4.
Second.
Ms. Zinal.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to authorize the Select Board to apply for, accept, and expend without further appropriation any state or federal grants, gifts, and awards from any public or private source that become available in fiscal year 2025. To authorize its treasurer, subject to the approval of the Select Board, to enter into a compensating balance agreement or agreements for fiscal year 2025 pursuant to Chapter 44, Section 53F of the General Laws, and to authorize the Select Board to enter into a memorandum of agreement with the Massachusetts Department of Public Works under General Law, Chapter 90, concerning the use of funds made available through the state's transportation bond issue.
You've heard the motion made and seconded under Articles 2 through 4. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor of Articles 2 through 4, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Jaworski.
I move we take up Article 5.
The motion has been made and seconded under Article 5 is in your handout.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Jaworski.
I move that the town vote to appropriate $100,000 from free cash to supplement the fiscal year 2024 snow and ice budget for unforeseen expenses.
Motion has been made and seconded under Article 5 in your handout. Or sorry, you've heard the motion made and seconded under Article 5. Is there any discussion? Yes, Billy.
Bill Belden, Pantry Road. My question is, $100,000 for a winter did not happen? I mean, come on. We had one storm broadcast, 2 months ago for 8 to 10 inches. They went out, plastered the road with salt, and we didn't get one drop of snow. The roads were dry. Thankfully, the schools didn't even cancel, you know. I think it's ridiculous that we do this every year. We should be able to account for every storm. Just to ask for $100,000. Especially now, you drive through town, there's signs put up, you know, another tax increase because we got an override coming. And you would see $100,000 spent on snow and ice, and for what?
Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of Article 5, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Nay. We'll do it one more time. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Nay. We're going to do a vote. We've got counters. So, first off, all those in favor, please stand, and our counters will vote. We'll take your count. All those in favor. Please, when you're voting, please stand and hold your card in the air. Joe, did you get the stage? You got the stage, Joe? Okay. Okay, the ayes can sit. And then anyone opposed, please stand. And again, hold your card. That way we make sure we have registered voters. Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
Yes votes 37, no votes.
Hang on, sorry.
Sorry.
Get the mic on. Okay.
Yes votes 37, no votes 111.
Motion fails. You call for it. You want to call for it? Yeah. Just into the mic. So Sean is stepping down because he's refusing, or he's stepping down from the stage, so he will speak as a general citizen, not as a member of the Finance Committee.
Sean Berry, Pantry Road. I'd like to move to reconsider the question. We've spent the money. The question is, are we going to pay the bill? So, and if, I haven't heard any proposal of how.
Okay, so we have a motion to reconsider the article. There is a second. So we have is there any discussion on the motion to reconsider?
Could we just explain how this works every year? So we do this every year. I mean, this is the way that the funding for snow and ice works. You spend it in advance and then you pay for it at town meeting the next year because it's absolutely impossible to predict what the storms will be. I mean, I for one appreciate that we have safe roads to travel on in the winter. And I think most people in this room would agree that our DPW does a good job. I mean, what do we honestly want them to do? Not take care of the roads in the winter? And these things have high costs. The cost of salt, the cost of sand, the cost of the labor. That's just how it works. I mean, are we actually going to sit in this room and say we don't want our roads taken care of in the winter? I just don't understand.
Okay.
So, Bobby?
Oh.
So one thing just to clarify on this. So right now the motion that's on the floor is the motion to reconsider. It is not the motion, it is not further discussion on the article. So right now, the motion on the floor that's been made and seconded is to reconsider Article number 5. Okay? Okay, is there any discussion on the reconsideration?
He's waiting.
Sorry, I just want to make sure on the reconsideration. That way we all know what we're talking on.
Mark Gillot, 70 Elm Street. I think this has bearing on reconsideration. Is the snow and ice removal totally decided at town meeting, or is there some pre-planning for snow removal before the snow actually falls? Can somebody answer that question? And how much was set aside for snow removal that's already been spent, not the 100,000, but was pre-planned for snow removal, and now we're seeing an overage? Can someone just explain how that process works?
So, Bobby? So, we go through this every year. So this year, going forward, we have $51,338 that's in the budget for snow removal. Snow removal is one of those things that you can spend over the budget, because you don't know how much it's going to cost in the course of a winter. We don't know how many storms we're going to have. We don't know what our costs are going to be. So the state allows every city and town in the Commonwealth to overspend on snow removal. And we've done this for years. So our actual snow, and Phil, you can correct me, our snow removal cost for this year is not just $100,000, it's $151,000 in snow removal. So that's how the process works. That's how it's done every year. The issue we would have tonight is if we decide, we, the town, decide that we're not going to take this money out of free cash and pay snow removal, that money will have to come out of the budget somewhere. Because this money has already been spent. I hope that helps.
Okay. Yep.
I'll move the question on reconsideration.
Okay, there's been a motion to move the question for reconsideration. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, second. And we're on a 2/3 vote on this, okay? So on a voice vote, it needs to be near unanimous. So first, all those in favor of reconsidering Article 5, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. One more time, needs to be a 2/3. All those in favor of reconsidering Article number 5, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. We're going to vote again. I'll have my counters.
It's not 2/3. So. Yes, sorry.
Yep, so town council is just reminding me. So what we are voting on is the motion to move the question of reconsidering. Okay, so this isn't the actual vote on reconsidering. All right, this is a procedural, unfortunately. So the motion that we are voting on is to move the vote of reconsidering. Then we will need to vote on the reconsideration if this is moved. All right, so we're going to end up with 3 votes here, potentially. Okay, so all those in favor of moving to a vote to reconsider, please signify, or please stand and hold your card in the air. And this is 2/3.
That's right.
Okay, so now again, we are voting on the motion to move the question to a vote. All those opposed, please stand and hold your card.
Motion to reconsider.
No, this is to move the question. Then we have to actually vote to reconsider.
Somebody's going to have to decide what line it comes out of. What line does it come out of? No, I guess we can't pass a budget.
Not this budget, won't work.
Right.
So what would we have to do?
There were 106 yeses, 40 noes. To pass, we needed 98, so the motion passes.
Okay, So the motion passes to move the question. So now we are going to vote on the reconsideration of Article number 5. All right? And this now is into a simple majority vote. So we're moving the question. So the question has been moved, and the question has been moved to a vote. So now we vote. Now we're voting on that, and then there'll be the reconsideration. If it passes, then there'll be a discussion on the reconsideration. And this is parliamentary procedure. Okay? So we're voting now. All those in favor of reconsidering Article number 5, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. So now we are reconsidering Article number 5. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Moderator,
Yes.
every other time in every other town that I've seen a snow and ice backfill of a budget to cover any overage in the existing current year, the dollar amount has been something like $14,227 or $59,265. As I understand it, the original appropriation was $51,000.
That's this year. I'd have to go back. It's around $50,000.
But it was 51,000 something, something, something.
Yes.
That seems a curious appropriation. And it seems equally curious that the amount that we have to backfill is precisely $100,000. My question is, has there been any transfers out of the snow and ice budget in this fiscal year? Other than paying the obvious bills. So somehow, with an appropriation of $51,000 and change, they got through the end of the snow and ice year, they paid for their salt, they paid for their overtime, they paid for the gas and the fuel and everything else they have to carry, and they spent precisely $100,000 above and beyond their appropriation.
That was the number that was given to us.
Thank you for the
Sorry,
time.
just for the record, can you give your name and street? Sorry, I
Mr.
apologize.
My name is Doug Finn, 15 King Street.
Thank you. Sorry.
Larry Grossman, King Street. I'm just curious, we're spending these first few articles about free cash. What is the balance and what do you anticipate spending if all these articles pass on free cash?
I think that's it. This is it for free cash.
That's the only transfer that you're recommending?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mark. So this, in free cash this year, the only free cash we're spending is this $100,000. The other money that what was the total in free cash, Marlene, was 200 and...
Total certified free cash was $362,295.
362,295.
And we're only spending $248,461.
Yeah, there is other.
Oh, yes, and there is other, I apologize. VOCED is the other part of what we're putting into free cash, or taking from free cash this year.
Which is what?
That's
The vocation.
That's 111,000 for
Okay.
VOCED and transportation for that.
Okay. But it is interesting what the other fellow brought up, that we're spending a third of our free cash on we always spend some snow money after the fact.
Right.
But this is a big chunk. And as the fellow said, I would think, and Phil might say something, most of the expenses are overtime and salt or sand, whatever equipment. So it's amazing that it is so much higher on such a mild winter. So maybe there should be some explanation of that, because this is a big chunk of money for the second article we're dealing with.
So when we budget for snow and ice initially, we're not attempting to predict. When we budget for snow and ice originally in the budget, like we've done this year with the $51,338, which is $2,500 more than it was last year, we don't actually intend to predict the outcome of snow and ice. And in fact, sometimes it works in our favor not to do that. So if a state of emergency gets declared and there's emergency funding for a particular storm or something, then we can recoup that money from the state. So you would not have had to spend it. And that's part of the reason why snow and ice is one of the only line items that you can deficit spend, because it is unpredictable in terms of how much it's going to be each year. And I mean, also, we're not trying to max it out, because then if we didn't spend it, then we would tie that money up. We would have to take it out of another budget tonight. We would tie that money up, and if we didn't use it, it would just fall to free cash next year. And it would be, so, if we cut the senior center, or we cut the school, we eliminate a teacher, we do any of those things, and then it turns out we didn't need the money in the first place, that would be kind of foolish to do. So, is the amount exactly $100,000? It may not be exactly $100,000, because every invoice might not have come in yet. So, right, so there's still maybe some outstanding invoices to snow and ice, obviously not on the salary side, on the overtime side, but there might be on the expense side. So if, for example, we spent, the real number turned out to be $97,538.62, the remainder of the $100,000 would not be spent. It would just close out free cash next year. You can't just spend money that we don't have invoices for. So that's the sort of explanation behind snow and ice. It may not benefit us in the long run to actually target it like that. And that's why a lot of towns, as was mentioned, there's a lot of snow and ice votes, because people do under budget it normally. That's a pretty normal thing.
Luke Longstreet, Pantry Road. I guess a couple questions that I have is that it's fairly well known that anything after October 1st, doesn't matter what the item is, can be appropriated out of snow and ice. And both being a resident of this town and attending meetings and being an outside contractor for this town, that there's things other than snow and ice that are paid out of snow and ice. And when you have an article coming for $100,000 when the appropriated budget was only $51,000, it makes a lot of residents question what else was spent out of snow and ice to come up to that $100,000 mark, especially because it wasn't the winter. It wasn't. I'm a snow contractor myself. We didn't do that much snow this year. So to say that there's a $100,000 overage because of snow and ice specifically is not accurate. And there's other money being spent out of this line item that should be answered for.
That's what I want to say.
Okay. Is there any further discussion?
Phil?
Phil?
So I've listened to the comments, and we do this every year, as was told to this community, and every other community does too. It's a matter, the accountant even questioned it, why the snow and ice budget was that much in deficit. But then looking at whoever they represent, every town was in deficit, just like us. And Mr. Longstreet was correct that other things are spent against the snow and ice budget that are not the salaries or the materials of salt or sand. It's the fuel. It's all the repairs prior to going out, not knowing what the winter's going to bring. So say we repair a sander from last year, that expense for repairs goes to snow and ice, which it should. But anything that's spent has to be associated with a snow vehicle or snow and ice in general. It just can't be spent on anything like buying some loom or something like that. We also have winter patch that we can charge the snow and ice, so it's not just the labor. And to insinuate that we went over budget by the $100,000 is kind of disturbing, if you ask me, that it seems like people in this room are saying that the budget was not appropriate. But saying that, so we take repairs, you take materials. When I first started 40 years ago in this business, a ton of salt was $25. Today it's $87 a ton, and it's just going to keep climbing. All the fuel costs that are associated with snow and ice, all the repairs, as I said, you know, to repair a sander, to repair a vehicle, anything that's snow-related, such as a dump truck, the repairs can be charged to snow and ice during that time. The labor costs, of course, were not that much. If you look into what was spent, it's mostly on materials and repairs and fuel.
Any further discussion?
Can I just add that as those expenses, just like all town expenses, are paid out, all of these things are reviewed by our accountant, our treasurer, ultimately part of an audit. I mean, they're all viable expenses to go through that line.
You can go first.
Yep. Jacob DeBrinzi from Elm Street. What I have to say is I'm a subcontractor for Mass DOT. So I'm out before any of you guys are awake. I'm out in the middle of the night before the storm even hits. And he was talking about material expenses. When I leave my house, this street looks like a beach of salt. So we're spending excess money on salt. We are spending excess money on overtime. And I think it's uncalled for, because then all of a sudden they're predicting a huge event. We have beaches of salt down Elm Street, and I'm leaving, and it's destroying our vehicles, for one. And second of all, when I leave and it is a bust of a storm, I come home and there's still the full beach of salt on the ground. So we wasted thousands of dollars. I get salt's expensive, and I understand why the budget increase is in question. But how are we questioning it when we're wasting it is basically what I have to say. Thank you.
And I'll get to you in 1 second. Yep.
Yeah, no, let her go.
Yep.
Amy Hahn, 19 School Street. I drive every morning. I commute to Deerfield. And when it's snowing, what you see as a sea of salt, I see when I cross the line on River Road from Hatfield into Whately, I know it, because my car starts sliding around and I'm all over the road, and I hate it. And I'm gripping the wheel with both hands because Whately does not use as much salt as Hatfield does. I really appreciate that Hatfield clears and salts its roads properly and keeps us all safe.
Daryl?
I'm trying to figure out a polite way. The discussion that I've had that we're having with the selectmen and our committee right now is, if this doesn't pass, the $100,000 is part of the balanced budget that we presented going forward. And so once we get to the budget, we would, in all likelihood, we would have to table it so that we could go back and figure out where to find $100,000 in the current budget to cover these costs for last year. So again, just so you're aware of the challenge going forward. Thank you.
Okay.
Bobby?
Yep, go ahead.
Just because somebody mentioned the contracting for the state, I should also say that the state itself underfunds snow and ice and passes supplemental budgets during the year to cover that expense, which if you're contracting for them, you probably well know, because you don't get paid. until those supplemental budgets pass. So it's not just a phenomenon of the town.
One other thing I just want to add is because this is always an unknown and we are allowed to deficit spend, I mean, if the town was going to feel this way about the budget, that would mean that we would have to build higher numbers into the budget that we pass, which again would affect other budgets in town because we'd have to build that in there. So just know it's sort of a protection put in for communities to be able to do it this way.
Hi, Martin O'Masta, North Hatfield Road. Yeah, I appreciate the savviness on keeping the budget low so that we can take advantage of the state funds. But on the budget, page 2 there, it says Article 5, special articles, snow and ice budget. It says, as of April 2nd this year, minus 93,466. So is that including the 51,000 or not? So are we only really at 42,466 deficit, or what does that number mean?
No, we're at 100,000.
No, you're appropriating you're appropriating in addition to whatever was budgeted in fiscal year 24, which is last year's budget. It's approximately $50,000. It's
Right, so the delta is $6,500 or so that you would save, that you're saying we might not spend all $100,000, you said. So is that the 7,000 or?
Well, so when we get the number from DPW, it's an estimate of what the overage is going to be. It's got to be somewhat accurate because we can't get any more money. So it's not exact down to the penny because there are sometimes other invoices that come in that we haven't calculated yet. But it can't be more than what's appropriated. So if it turned out to be more than what was appropriated, we'd have to come back to town meeting.
Right. Okay. I'm going to take one more, and then we're going to move the question because we do have a long agenda still ahead.
Lucinda Williams, Depot Road. If we do not pass this $100,000 free cash money that we have to pay bills, which we owe and have already spent, I would then move later to take this $100,000 and put it toward the school. Because we have this money in free cash. We have it here to spend. However, we do owe these bills. So I would really advise that we go ahead and pay our bills with the money that we have. Thank you.
Okay. So I said I'm going to take one more, so we're going to go ahead and move the question to a vote. So all those in favor of Article 5, the reconsideration of Article 5, so voting on Article 5, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Mr. Moderator.
Okay. Nope. We'll do a head count. Okay? We'll do a head count. All right? So we'll go back to it. All those in favor, stand. We'll have our counters count. Okay? All those opposed to Article 5, please stand and again hold your card.
every year there's something that I don't expect, but.
Yes votes 107, no votes 57.
Motion carries.
You're up.
So we're taking it up again, right?
No, that was the vote on the article, so it
That was
passes.
the vote
Yep.
on the article. Okay,
Yep.
good.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Gagnon.
I move that we take up Article 6.
The motion has been made and seconded to take up Article 6 as in your handout.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Gagnon.
I move that the town vote to appropriate $11,180,000 from free cash to supplement vocational tuition and transport FY 2024 budget.
You've heard the motion made and seconded under Article 6. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor of Article 6, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Mr. Moderator,
Ms. Zinal.
I move we take up Article 7.
The motion has been made and seconded to take up Article 7 as in your handout.
Mr. Moderator,
Ms. Zinal.
I move that the town vote to authorize the Select Board to enter into a 5-year lease agreement for a photocopier in Memorial Town Hall beginning July 1, 2024.
You've heard the motion made and seconded under Article 7. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of Article 7, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Jaworski.
I move we take up Article 8.
The motion has been made and seconded to take up Article 8 as in your handout.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Jaworski.
I move that the town vote to authorize the Select Board to enter into a 5-year lease agreement for a postage meter in Town Hall beginning July 1, 2024.
You've heard the motion made and seconded under Article 8. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor of Article 8, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Gagnon.
I move that we take up Article 9.
The motion has been made and seconded to take up Article 9 as in your handout.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Gagnon.
I move that the town vote to authorize the Select Board with the approval of the school committee to lease all or a portion of the roof of a Hatfield Elementary School located at 33 Main Street for a term of years upon such terms and conditions as are acceptable to the Select Board, to a solar energy provider for the purposes of constructing, maintaining, and operating a solar facility on the property, and to enter into a power purchase agreement with the solar energy provider. And further, to authorize the Select Board and/or school committee to grant an easement to Eversource to install, maintain, operate, repair, reinstall, or replace any utilities required for interconnection to the solar facility project.
You've heard the motion made and seconded under Article 9. Is there any discussion? Yeah, down front.
I think many of us in this room know about solar, that we've explored it for our houses or our businesses. And it surprised me that the school is proposing a PPA agreement, this purchase of the agreement. And I'd like to hear from the school, what else did they explore and why is this the best plan for the town? What's the anticipated cost benefit? What are the alternatives? And defend this article.
Right. Yeah. So Matt, I'll have Christy speak. She may address what you're asking first, so go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Christy Boudreau, School Committee Chair. This is a little bit of a different beast than most solar projects. What Article 9 would do would position us to apply for a grant that is not yet open, but has been announced by the Green School Works. What the grant would allow us to do is to fully replace the 21-year-old roof that we have had at the elementary school that has had significant leaks over a course of years. It's been on the capital improvement list for years. The last time we got a bid to replace that roof, it was $1.4 million. That number is probably 2 years out of date, and we think those costs are probably considerably higher. The grant would allow a contractor partner to come in and put in solar, but part of the deal is that they would actually replace the roof. To be able to apply for the grant, we have to have the warrant agreed to by town. And so this just basically gets the school and town ready to apply for the grant when it opens, so that we have an opportunity to save the cost of the roof replacement. It would also give us a fixed competitive price on electricity for that term of 20 years. So it's an unusual structure perhaps, but this is about replacing a roof because we're concerned about keeping schools open with leaky roofs.
Thank you. Any further discussion on Article 9? Yep, in the back.
Jeff Zagrodnik, Main Street. I'm actually on the Board of Health. A couple of years ago, we did a tour through the school, and we did find that the roof was compromised. However, I'm in favor of this project only based upon one thing. If they're going to replace the roof, I want to make sure that the warranty covers whether it be a 20 or 30-year roof with the solar on it, because I did have a neighbor have solar on their house. The panels failed, they came in, the racking system was different. He fought with them, and they actually had to come and replace the roof. So I'm in favor of this as long as that is actually figured out, so we don't end up with a white elephant on top of the roof. You know what I'm saying? So has anybody done any research on this? Can we put contingencies upon this?
If you're looking to make an amendment, you certainly can do that.
I think it's, you might be better with this, but
if you
know
want
what
to,
I mean?
if
In
you
this
want to,
day and
Elena has
age, the
form
way
here.
things are, you know what I mean? Stuff changes and it's forever, moving forward. We just don't want to get hung, all right, we got a new roof. Well, that's great, but if the system fails and 5 years down the road, they got to come in and they end up having to change the whole racking system out, now what do we do?
Christie, you want?
Hi, Adam Sullivan, School Committee. Our presumption, and we're happy to look into this, is that if the system should fail, the solar system would fail, since it's a lease agreement, they're not making any money. It's in their benefit to keep the system running.
I understand, but we're talking about the roof, not the system. They're worried about their pocket,
Guys,
not ours.
just if you can, just remember one at a time and towards the front. Not a discussion.
It's a fair point, and I think we're all in agreement on that, and we're certainly to...
Larry, you'd probably be better at amendments. I've watched you do dozens over the years.
All right. Yep. Sean?
I think at some point we would have to have a group of people who are going to negotiate a contract with a provider that isn't in existence yet. We don't know who they are. And
well, this is what I'm saying. If
I
we're
know,
voting upon this, we want these contingencies in the contract before we say yes.
Christie, you want it? Jeff, you can step back. Yeah, Christie, come up.
I mean, I think it's just a difficult thing to negotiate the contract in advance of having a partner to negotiate with at town meeting when we don't know what else is part of the contract yet.
And so this just opens the door to have those conversations and negotiations, but without this, we can't get to that step. So I would just ask if there are amendments made that they come from our attorney who would be mindful of implications.
So just to clarify, and I want to make sure I'm understanding this right for everyone's benefit. So this does not lock us into anything. This just allows us to apply for this grant. Then there would be further to move forward with any work that we did from there.
That's correct.
Okay, just want to make sure I understand for everyone's benefit. Okay.
Doug Finn, still 15 King Street. I move to amend the motion by inserting the words.
Doug, I'm going to ask you before you even read it, come on up, because there is a
do it
form
in
you have to
writing.
fill out.
I'm sorry?
There's a
It has to
form
be
we
in-
need you to fill
got
out to
it.
do
In
it.
writing.
And then it can be read. while he's doing that, yep, we'll continue discussion on the original article.
Well, just a housekeeping thing. While he's doing that, you know, I've been up there for so many years, but it's really hard hearing back here. So when all of you talk, can you talk into the mic and much louder? Because it really doesn't transfer very well, and it would make it a whole lot easier for people. We are getting older. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
I would just add if people could also speak a little more slowly, because sometimes it's hard to understand.
Hi. Scott Novak, Main Street. Whatever he's going to amend, I mean, we need stipulations. I know we're going forward just to get on there.
The same comment, yep, go ahead.
So, I mean, we have to put the stipulations in. If the roof fails after they put it on, who's taking the solar panels off to fix said roof? I mean, that's a stipulation that has to be in there. How long are these going to be on our roof? And everything does fail. Is it going to say they're going to come and take them off when they do fail? Or is it, so these stipulations really need to be in the contract. And I know we're not there yet, but we need to make sure everybody here that's paying for this knows these things will be in there. You know, because if it fails or the roof fails, that's a lot of solar panels
So
to
the
take
roof
off.
is failing.
No, I know.
right?
Hey, I'm 100% behind.
Right.
Let's get a new roof.
This is an opportunity to get a 1-point-something million roof and the added benefit of solar on the school.
And I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. But
Just
what kind of a headache?
Hang on, one person at a time, because I know I can't even hear everything, which means everyone
Sure,
out there
sorry.
can.
And 100% with you. That's a great way to get a new roof. But it's to take something off and then repair and then put it back on. That doubles or triples it. You know, building a new house is a lot easier than rehabbing an old house. You know, it just costs so much more money. So just to put it in the contract and make sure Eversource, I mean, they got big pockets.
Chrissy, would changing this language make it less favorable for us to apply for the grant?
No, please.
Yes, it is very possible that amending the language that was provided to us that would qualify us to be a good applicant to help us get at the top of the list to get the free roof, that amending the language could impact that.
That's all I had. Okay, do you want to read it?
I can read it.
Yep.
Amy Hahn, 19 School
Oh,
Street.
sorry. We do have
Are we done?
the motion to amend is
Okay.
ready, so he did start it, so I do want to give that motion a chance to be read.
Okay, I'm going to read the motion with his amendment included. Right, the whole thing, yeah. I move that the town vote to authorize the select board with the approval of the school committee to lease all or a portion of the roof of Hatfield Elementary School located at 33 Main Street for a term of years upon such terms and conditions, and this is where we're adding, including warranties on roof and solar systems, as are acceptable to the select board, to a solar energy provider for the purposes of constructing, maintaining, and operating a solar facility on the property, and to enter into a power purchase agreement with the solar energy provider, and further to authorize the select board and/or the school committee to grant an easement to Eversource to install, maintain, operate, repair, reinstall, or replace any utilities required for interconnection to the solar facility project.
Okay, so you've heard the motion to amend. Is there a second? Okay, second. Is there any discussion on the amendment as was read? Okay, if none, then we will move to a vote on the amendment. And then if approved, that will bring us back to the main motion. So all those in favor of approving the amendment to Article number 9, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
One more time. All right. All those in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Nay. Motion to amend carries. So now we are on the amended version of Article number 9 as was read. Is there any discussion on the amended version of Article number 9? Okay, if none, all those in favor of passing the amended version of Article number 9, and Town Council is reminding me this is a 2/3 majority vote that we need to pass. So all those in favor of the amended Article number 9, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Mr. Moderator,
Ms. Zinal.
I move we take up Article 10.
The motion has been made and seconded to take up Article 10 as in your handout.
Mr. Moderator,
Ms. Zinal.
I move that the town vote to appropriate $14,520,731 for and consistent with separate purposes and separate line items set forth in the version of the fiscal year 2025 budget prepared by the Finance Committee, approved April 23, 2024, and on file with the town clerk, and to meet said appropriation as follows. From taxation, $12,800,913. From Cable TV Enterprise Fund, $41,351. From Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund, $1,249,367. From Water and Sewer Enterprise Retained Earnings, $134,397. From Ambulance Revenue Fund, $124,922. From Ambulance Surplus Fund, $20,000. From School Choice Fund, $12,000. From Cemetery Perpetual Care Interest Fund, $500. And from free cash, $137,281.
You've heard the motion made and seconded under Article 10. Is there any discussion? And this is our budget article, so I know typically we give you a minute to take a look at that. It is broken up into categories. Certainly we can discuss any of them, but again, we'll take a moment.
Since we didn't pass the snow for 100,000.
Can't hear you, Larry.
Oops, sorry, yeah,
we
Larry,
did
can you
pass
just talk?
Well, then that and the 11,000 only equal 111,000, but you want to take 137,000 from free cash. So there must be some other articles here that are taking 20 more thousand out of the savings, out of free cash.
I didn't get the quite. Try it again, Larry. What's not identified?
Larry, I'm sorry, can you just go to the mic so everyone can hear? Can you go to the mic so everyone can hear?
The articles calling for 137 from free cash. But the articles that we had are...
Which line? Which line are you talking about?
He's talking about here, by the bottom line, where
Article
we say
10, the one we're talking about here.
this is to fund part of the budget. The other articles are to fund other article items like the snow and
What's
ice.
that?
The $137,281 from free cash is to get us to a level funded budget.
Right.
The 100,000 for snow and
Is
ice,
in
those were
addition.
outside of the budget.
Was in addition to the 137.
Yes.
Yes.
It's separate, two separate.
Separate.
Okay.
It's last year.
The snow was last year.
Less snow is
Yeah.
last year, yeah.
Any other discussion on Article 10? Okay. If none, all those in favor of Article 10, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Jaworski.
I move we take up Article 11.
The motion has been made and seconded to take up Article 11 as in your handout.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Jaworski.
I move that the town vote to appropriate $66,000 from the tax levy for the purpose of funding personnel in the fire ambulance department, contingent upon passage of a Proposition 2.5 ballot question under General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 21C.
You've heard the motion made and seconded under Article 11. Is there any discussion? And just a reminder, as we've had in the past with these, this is step one in the process. So if this passes tonight, then next week at elections, this question is on the ballot and will be voted there as well. So it's a two-part process for any of these. This is step one. Step two would then follow next week. So with that, is there any discussion on Article 11? Yeah.
Bill Belden, Pantry Road again. I'm coming up here now because The select board actually did a study, and they were printed last year in July. And they're not even bringing forth what was recommended on that study. We spent over $25,000 on this study to help the fire department. They're not meeting the demand for the ambulance and the fire side of it. They need personnel. The best way to hire them is they like to work 24-hour shift. This is only going to give them a 16-hour day. That's it, 7 days a week. There's no overnight coverage. The ambulances are not going to get covered at night. The fire, it's a hit or miss, you know, because there aren't that many people anymore. Nobody wants to volunteer. There's 82% of the country are volunteer fire departments, and every one of them is having problems getting people to volunteer. And why this isn't addressed, you know, on a 24/7 basis is beyond me when we did this study. I mean, it's almost a year it's been we had this study. And I would suggest that people go on the website and read this study or watch the, they actually did a presentation of it in July. And their recommendation is 24/7 coverage to give you fire and EMTs to cover. You're not getting that right now. And, you know, we don't want to go down the road where we did, because the ambulance is 40 years old now. It's been in service for over 40 years. And what happened before was, you know, there was an outfit that came to, they were Gold Cross ambulance. They were covering the town. They came to Hatfield. They said, we're not going to cover you. We had to hurry up and get an ambulance. You know, it took us a couple years, but we got an ambulance and funded it. The Lions Club did a fundraising, bought the ambulance, brought the first ambulance. There were 17 people that took the class, but we don't get that anymore. You're gonna have to face the bullet here, and you're kicking the can down the road. Why they didn't bring up the 24/7, I'll never know. I suggest people read these articles, read this report, and it explains a lot of stuff in there. I mean, we need the help. I mean, we can't go down the road. You can't count on, you know, Northampton coming in all the time or South County. You know, we need the help. So I suggest people that, you know, we really need to have this passed, but we really should be going to 24/7s. Thank you.
Any further discussion on Article 11? Yeah, Joe? I have to say, Joe, it's nice seeing, you know, that you're still here and you're still, conversing with us. So we appreciate it.
I think what, you know, we're in such a divided world, and when we come up to these questions, we all want the best of everything. We all know the town that we can all imagine and picture. But we got to take a look at what we can each afford with each of our own budgets. We know this town is maybe 35, 40% seniors. Well, seniors have to live within their budget, and their Social Security doesn't go up. And yet, we're exactly the ones that need these services. So we also had a school that was funded when we were young kids, too. And now we're funding a school, and our kids are grown up. So we look at you guys to try to come up with the best mixture of numbers that can work and we can grow into it. So we all want the best town we can imagine, but we all have to vote, and it's not to pick apart or pick on the fire department or the school or police, but we're all trying to vote in private what we can each afford. So when people vote tonight, don't think it's against any one department or for any one department. We're all voting what we can afford, not what we can imagine. Thank you.
Any further discussion under Article 11? Okay, all those in favor of Article 11, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Gagnon.
I move that we take up Article 12.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to take up Article 12 is in your handout.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Gagnon.
I move that the town vote to set the spending limits for revolving funds under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E1/2 for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2024 as follows. Community Garden, $5,000. DPW motor grader, $5,000. Hazardous materials, $20,000. Tax title, $25,000. Celebration fund, $50,000, for a total of $105,000.
You've heard the motion made and seconded under Article 12. Is there any discussion?
Doug Finn, I don't think I've moved yet, 15 King Street. Just a question, what receipts are related to hazardous materials? I just don't understand what that is.
Yep, I think Bob can answer that.
Hazardous materials.
Bob Flaherty, Fire Chief. Those receipts would come from incidents. For hazardous materials, you're actually able to bill insurance companies if there was a fuel leak on any road in town. You can actually bill for the personnel and the materials that are used. So those funds would come back to the fire department, and then up to the $20,000 would be within our purview. We have used it in the past to buy multi-gas meters that specifically do for ammonia to going into CNS. That's one of the bigger expenses that we've had, but that's what it comes from.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion under Article 12? Yeah, Larry.
Is there something earmarked for the 50,000 celebration committee?
Not sure if anyone, I don't know if anyone from the celebration is here.
Anna or Christy?
No, I don't see any of them here.
You should. Anna, do you want to speak to that question?
Is Anna? Oh, there's Anna. Sorry, didn't see you there, Anna.
Anna Holhut, Celebration Committee, and we're on the 350. I believe, Bobby has to shake his head yes or no, that we had an excess of money in the 350th, and we put that back into the town. So that was unused funds from the 350th that we fundraised, and the town had given us money for the 350th celebration. We didn't need it, and we're giving it back. So, correct?
So this is the carrying of the balance that's
Yeah,
in there.
right.
This is carryover funds
Right,
from the
right.
350th that are in there.
And then the celebration committee was established so that events could be held, like the Friday night concerts in the
Correct.
park, and
Correct.
that sort of thing.
Yeah, so the Celebration Committee is a spin-off of the 350th Committee, and that's where your concerts in the park every third Friday night and the fireworks on Luminarium, that's where that is coming from.
Thank you. Any other discussion on Article 12? Not. All those in favor of Article 12, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries.
Mr. Moderator,
Ms. Zinal.
I move we take up Article 13.
The motion has been made and seconded to take up Article 13 as in your handout.
Mr. Moderator,
Ms. Zinal.
I move that the town vote to appropriate $133,500 from the Cable TV Enterprise retained earnings for a cable TV control studio and multimedia conference room on the second floor in Memorial Town Hall.
You've heard the motion made and seconded under Article 13. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor of Article 13. Oh, sorry, yeah. Sorry, didn't see you in the back. Come on up. Thank you. As Joe often said, the clerk is your best friend.
Two questions, actually. Number one, this money, this $133,500 is part of the cable contract.
Mm-hmm.
How much is generated yearly from the cable contract back to the town?
It's negotiated every 3 years, right, Marlene? 10 years. So it's
Ballpark.
how do we, John, do we know on a yearly basis how this, it's done as a 10-year contract, correct? Where's John? Oh.
John's behind the camera. He's used to being behind the camera.
Right.
So I'm just going to repeat that because John's working the camera double duty. So it's about $16,000 per quarter that comes back to the town that goes into the enterprise fund, and no tax dollars support the cable advisory and the cable station.
Comes
Is that
from the
correct, John?
cable, yeah.
Just trying to keep John behind the camera.
Listen, as we all know, I mean, everybody in here is extorted by the cable company unless they gave everything back. But $133,000, is Hollywood coming to town? I mean, what's going on? Is it really necessary? Can't we like maybe use these funds a different way? It just seems kind of like a selfish expense.
Diana, you want to?
I mean, in terms of the technical and the expense involved with setting up, so this would be setting up a new studio. Right now, John operates, so all the meetings that you watch, and I know people watch them because they talked about.
I'm not disputing that, but I have a really hard time with $133,500. I don't know if I'm alone in this room on this, but it seems to be.
Right. And so
then is there another avenue that we could use to spend some of this money, maybe back to the residents that are actually paying for all this cable?
that he's saying the FCC prohibits it from being spent except on certain things, and this meets the criteria. So this is setting up an entire studio upstairs so that John won't be operating out of a closet anymore, which is what he does now. And there'll be some work done in the upstairs room to create a second meeting space that's fully technologically ready to host meetings on a regular basis so that we can have as much information out there and, televised meetings as possible.
So with that being said, we don't have any other way we can use these funds other than to spend the money
They have
in
to
this
be-
manner.
Yes, John's, right. Like, we couldn't use these on our budget or anything like that.
Of course not. This is Massachusetts. Thanks.
Okay.
Marno Masta, North Hatfield Road. So can community groups or like the book club use this media center? Yes. Well, that's pretty cool thing.
And I will say, over the years, as residents, we're really lucky because it used to be just select board meetings that were broadcast. Now, school committee meetings are broadcast, planning board meetings are broadcast, and that's really a huge credit to John and the work he does, and he's been able to do it out of a closet, and I think it's time he has a studio.
I just want to kind of build on what Jeff said is, this money isn't some gift from Comcast. Every one of us is paying this every month in our bill. If you look at some of those 50 fees at the bottom of the bill. And there is some history here that we did have a studio at the first contract in this building. It was over by the door you came in. And then it was going to be moved at one point to the town hall, and that kind of didn't pan out. And now that the second floor is handicap accessible and everything, and we trust that John could spend the money wisely and build a useful studio, I think that's a good use of it. But the real issue is that on the next cycle of renewing, which we probably blew because it's a 10-year contract, we should really not charge the residents of Hatfield so much fees. It's just a pass-through. It comes from your pocket into this retained earnings fund.
Okay. So with that, all those in favor of Article 13, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Article carries.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Jaworski.
I move we take up Article 14.
The motion has been made and seconded to take up Article 14 is in your handout.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Jaworski.
I move that the town vote to appropriate $1,400,000 for the purpose of supplementing the wastewater treatment plant upgrades project and to raise as appropriation. The treasurer, with the approval of the select board, is authorized to borrow such sum under general laws C-44 section 7 or any other enabling authority and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore.
You've heard the motion made and seconded under Article 14. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor of Article 4, Larry? Yep, sorry, yep.
Really no discussion on $1 million? This project And we need a sewer plant, but it's becoming, is it going to become another 510 sewer project? Is it going to be next year, we're going to have a special meeting for another $1 million? And I think maybe Phil's the best person. Somebody from DPW maybe could talk about what happened here, that it's already, it's a 14, what was the original, 14 million? 20, what? 12. So now we're growing. And also I thought that the only way we could, because this was a debt exclusion, I thought the only way that we could spend this money, increase it, is through a vote, unless it was for strictly inflation-related expenses. But in the Gazette article, it mentions some enhancements to the project, which then I would think might not allow it to just be voted on tonight as to increase the debt exclusion.
Okay. Either
Your
Phil or the
permission
board.
for Dave to speak?
I'm going to let Phil first speak.
We're not increasing the debt exclusion.
Okay.
We are not increasing the debt exclusion. The and Phil, correct me if I'm wrong, but the 1.4 million will be paid for out of that loan. That part of the loan will be paid by the sewer users themselves. The rest of the debt exclusion is paid for by the whole town. And the 1.4 million will only be paid for by the sewer users themselves.
Is that the one on the transfer?
I'm sorry, Mike, hang on.
Is that the 1.2 that's mentioned in the enterprise fund? On the page before?
No. I don't
where's the
know.
one-
This is a borrowing. This is a proposed borrowing.
Oh, it's a proposed borrowing.
Yes.
You just said it, I thought you just said it comes from the use fees.
It's a proposed borrowing that will be paid for by the sewer users.
Oh, okay. It's
Debt payment will be paid for by sewer users.
You have to borrow the money to do the project, Larry. You have to borrow the money before the users can pay it back.
Right.
To do the project, you know what I mean? We
But
can't
is
pay
everyone
over.
comfortable with the $1.4 million expansion of the project?
So
I don't think it's an
So
expansion of the.
not an- I would like to, sorry, we do have Mr. Prickett here who can speak to this.
Sure, he came here.
We have to get permission
So-
for him to speak.
So I'm going to ask the floor. Our engineer is not a town resident, so is everyone here comfortable with him speaking as far as the scope of what this is? So all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Okay, you may speak. And this is, again, the glory of town meeting. It's your meeting. You control it.
Good evening. Dave Prickett with DPC Engineering. We came before the residents 4 years ago and asked for the initial appropriation of $12 million for the plant upgrade. I feel like this has been a story that I've had to tell at many town meetings over the past couple of years, where $12 million 4 years ago didn't quite take you across the finish line to where we wanted to be today. So the 1.4 million that's being asked of the residents this evening relates to kind of three categories. The first is well, let me take a step back. We opened bids about a month ago. The contractor gave us pricing. The contractor agreed to hold their bids for alternates, which we don't yet have enough money to move forward with, subject to the consideration of the town. Those alternates include fixing all of the metal innards and moving parts in two of the major tanks at the treatment plant that are very near and dear to the operators' hearts and very, very old, pushing 40 years. Also, the conversion of gas chlorine to a much safer liquid bleach type disinfection, so the operators don't have the safety hazards associated with using gaseous chlorine. And then lastly, increasing of the contingency up to about 10% of construction. It was a little scary going into construction with only a 5% contingency before we put a shovel in the ground. So those are the three primary elements of the proposed article for consideration. And should the residents authorize us to move forward, then we would work with USDA to try to seek additional loans and grants to fund that, again, for the users.
Which are very low interest. The USDA grants
Very
are
low interest, below
loans, excuse
2%
me, are
right
very
now.
low interest.
Yeah.
Thank you.
2.75.
Yeah, Stan.
Stan Pitchko, 65 Prospect Street in Hatfield. $1.4 million going to be paid for by the users. Currently, this past year, our rates went up substantially, probably 20–30%, if not better. And now you're asking for $1.4 million. And I'm wondering what that's going to do to the rates of those that are the users, number one. And number two, well, actually three, how many years is this being planned to be paid back? And number four or three is, once it is paid back, are our rates going to go back down, or are they going to stay where they are?
Dave, are you able to speak to how the USDA loans work with the repayment? Is it 30 or 40? 40-year loan.
So the term of the USDA loan is 40 years. And again, we're going to try to get some additional grant money as part of this. But as a precursor to them even coming to the table, we'd have to have an appropriation in place. Relative to the sewer rates, I can't speak to what FY25 will bring. I can say that a couple of years ago, we did have a large step increase, and that was, I'll call it a necessary pre-evil to the USDA formula, because that allowed the town to get a 20% grant of the $12 million. Had you not had that step, their underwriting criteria would not have put you into the grant category. So it was a big step. I think most of the big steps are behind you. But
I just want to add could I add two things? Just to note that the majority of this project is actually paid for by all taxpayers, not just people on sewer. Correct?
Yeah, you do have a split.
So thank you to the residents who agreed to do that, who don't get to use the services, myself included. But then I just wanted, just to put in a nutshell what Dave said, this is something the town deals with a lot, especially on large projects. There's a lot of sort of paperwork and red tape and processes we have to go to bid large projects like this. So we go to town and say, we want to bid this project, we want to do this, we get the approval, and by the time all of that happens, prices have risen. And that's basically what you're seeing here. It's pretty common. It's just a big ticket item.
Daryl.
So I just want,
pull that nice and close.
I just wanted to tell people that from the Finance Committee point of view, a few years ago, we had a discussion with the Select Board, and this is in regards to rates that you asked about, Stanley. And at that point in time, water and sewer rates were not being raised annually. Your tax rate annually goes up at least 2.5%, or at most it goes up 2.5%. And so our recommendation from the Finance Committee at that point to the Board of Selectmen was that our water and sewer rates need to go up at least 2.5% every year, just to keep up with the cost of doing business. I don't like paying additional water rates either, but that's kind of what we have to do to keep up.
I believe part of it was also a recommendation, or the USDA, they needed to see our rates covering more of the actual operation of the systems for us to even qualify for these grants. So we had held sewer and water rates historically pretty low and found ourselves needing to catch up.
Okay, so we're going to go, yep, sorry, Sean.
Sorry, I just want to address that because I think it's a really good point and a discussion to have about how things like this get paid for in general, not just the sewer plant. But this is going to be a 40-year loan. So to sort of answer the question of, will rates go back down? I mean, only if the sewer plant lasts 200 years, will the rates ever go back down? Because eventually you're going to need to fix it again or build a new one or whatever. Something is going to happen. And I think that this is a good example of, like Daryl said, when we built the original sewer plant, we kept rates really low. And then when we needed a new sewer plant, there was no money in sewer and water to fund that. So it has to be borrowed again. It has to come out. And that was probably, that loan was not 40 years, I don't think. But, so by doing a 40-year loan, we're sort of running a pay-as-you-go system. So the answer is that, in 40 years, there's going to need to be another upgrade or another sewer plant. So, and then, and you know, it's really a fair way to do things, because otherwise your option is that the people who build the sewer plant pay the entire cost in some short period of time, 10 or 20 years. And then some other people get to use it for 10 or 20 years without paying at all. And then we have to do that cycle all over again. So it comes down to who's the lucky person who gets to get it when it's, you know, to get it when it's already been paid for. So I mean, I think this method allows the cost to be paid over time for all the people who are using the system.
And I can tell you it's year one for me, but I do not plan to be here in 40 years when this is getting voted on again. I'll take John, and then we're going to go ahead and move to a vote.
About four years ago on a rainy, snowy night in February, there's 6 people there. What I want to ask now, 4 years later, $12.2 million last year, $1.4 million this year, I have septic. Is this new plant going to accept the septic, or do we have to keep hauling it to New Hampshire? And 2/3 of the community, I believe, are on septic versus sewer.
Okay.
So the short answer is no. The upgraded plant will not take septic. It might not feel like it to Hatfield residents, but it's a really small treatment plant, and it's just not designed to handle the septage. You used to take it years ago, and it was an operational nightmare. It just wasn't designed for it. So you'd have to spend millions of dollars more to upgrade the plant to accommodate the septage, and in all honesty, it's just not worth the cost benefit to accommodate that, unfortunately. This question, it's a great question. It comes up on every job we do.
All right, we're going to go ahead and move this to a vote. So all those in favor of Article 14, and just a reminder, this is a 2/3 vote. So all those in favor of Article 14, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Article carries.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Gagnon.
I move we take up Article 15.
The motion has been made and seconded to take up Article 15 is in your handout.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Gagnon.
I move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $226,405 for the purpose of funding the FY 2025 Sewer Assessment Management Planning Project, to raise this appropriation by transferring from the Water and Sewer Retained Earnings account the sum of $28,695, and by authorizing the treasurer, with the approval of the Select Board, to borrow the sum of $197,710 under General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7, or other enabling authority to use and to issue bonds or notes of the town, therefore, provided that the appropriation shall be contingent upon an award by the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection to the town of a grant of $145,843.
You've heard the motion made and seconded under Article 15. Is there any discussion? Okay. All those in favor of Article 15 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Article carries.
Mr. Moderator,
Ms. Zinal.
I move we take up Article 16.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to take up Article 16 is in your handout.
Mr. Moderator,
Ms. Zinal.
I move that the town vote to appropriate $199,928 for the purpose of funding the FY 2025 Stormwater Assessment Management Plan Phase 1 project, and to raise this appropriation by authorizing the treasurer, with the approval of the Select Board, to borrow said sum under General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7, or any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore, provided that the appropriation shall be contingent upon an award by the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection to the town of Hatfield of a grant of $136,659.
You've heard the motion made and seconded under Article 16. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of Article 16 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Article carries.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Jaworski.
I move we take up Article 17.
The motion has been made and seconded to take up Article 17 is in your handout.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Jaworski.
I move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $171,288 for the purpose of funding FY 2025 Drinking Water Assets Management Plan Project, and to raise the appropriation by transferring from the Water and Sewer Retained Earnings Account the sum of $24,636, and by authorizing the treasurer with the approval of the Select Board to borrow the sum of $146,652 under General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7, or any appropriation shall be contingent upon an award by the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection to the town of a grant of $102,773.
You've heard the motion made and seconded under Article 17. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor of Article 17 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Article carries.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Gagnon.
I move we take up Article 18.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to take up Article 18 as in your handout.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Gagnon.
I move that the town to appropriate or reserve from the Community Preservation annual revenues in the amounts recommended by the Community Preservation Committee for committee administrative expenses, community preservation projects, and other expenses in fiscal year 2025, with each item to be considered a separate appropriation. The appropriations from FY 2025 estimated revenues for committee administrative expenses, $8,500. Reserves from FY 2025 estimated revenues for historic revenue reserve, $38,860. From FY 2025 estimated revenues for community housing reserved, $38,860. From FY 2025 estimated revenues for open space reserve, $38,860. From FY 2025 estimated revenues for budgeted reserve, $263,175.
You've heard the motion made and seconded under Article 18. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor of Article 18 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Article 18 carries.
Mr. Moderator,
Ms. Zinal.
I move we take up Article 19.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to take up Article 19 as in your handout.
Mr. Moderator,
Ms. Zinal.
I move that the town vote to appropriate by transfer from the Community Preservation Historic Resources Reserve account upon the recommendation of the Community Preservation Committee the sum of $7,000 to preserve, restore, or replace historic headstones in Hill Cemetery under the guidance of the Hatfield Cemetery and Historical Commissions, said funds to be expended under the direction of the Community Preservation Committee.
You've heard the motion made and seconded under Article 19. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor of Article 19, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Article 19 carries.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Jaworski.
I move that we take up Article 20.
The motion has been made and seconded to take up Article 20 as in your handout.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Jaworski.
I move that the town vote to appropriate by transfer from the Community Preservation Budgeted Reserve Account upon the recommendation of the Community Preservation Committee the sum of $29,825 to preserve and restore the facade, belfry, and clock enclosures of the historic town-owned clock located in the First Congregational Church steeple, said funds to be expended under the direction of the Community Preservation Committee.
You've heard the motion made and seconded under Article 20. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor of Article 20 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Article 20 passes.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Gagnon.
I move we take up Article 27.
Second.
Sorry.
21, correction, 21.
Okay.
I'm
Just
jumping.
making sure. He's testing me
Bruins
already.
The Bruins are on. Let's get going.
The motion has been made and seconded to take up Article 21 as in your handout.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Gagnon.
I move that the town vote to appropriate by transfer the Community Preservation Budgeted Reserve account upon the recommendation of Community Preservation Committee, the sum of $196,980 for rehabilitating and restoring for recreation, education, and open space purposes the town-owned day pond located at Smith Academy, 34 School Street, under the multiple departmental guidance of the Select Board, School Department, Recreation Department, Open Space Committee, and Department of Public Works. Said funds to be expended under the direction of the Community Preservation Committee.
You've heard the motion made and seconded under Article 21. Is there any discussion? Larry.
I guess I have two questions. The first of all, in general, my understanding is community preservation money, which, by the way, all of us that have any kind of real estate transfer is what funds this money. It's not some gift from heaven. And so I thought there were categories that we are designated to spend this money in, and one of them that we've never spent good money in is housing. And but yet I see some of the money is coming out of that. So I wonder, is there some flexibility by CPC that they could take money from different buckets, even though they're not really being used for the right project? So maybe someone could explain that from CPC. But also, $200,000 for the the little overgrown pond down by the school, well, right over here. That seems like a big project, and maybe somebody could explain that a little more also.
I think John's right next to you, maybe, or someone else.
First of all, I just want to tell you this project is being completed for $315,000. The money the other monies come from grants that Marlene got for us since we brought this to, or the applicants brought this to our attention about a year and a half ago. We had a study last year for $10,000 to see if the water was polluted in that. Well, it wasn't. There were some heavy metals there, but other than that, we've got to go ahead from engineers. We could do this pond. And as members of the Community Preservation Committee, we always look for matching monies for any application that comes in. And Marlene was very good at getting this. And also I recognize Brian Nicholas. I don't think it's Brian here tonight, but he championed this. He put together one of the most intense and documented, informative applications that we've ever received since the beginning of the formation of community preservation. So I urge the people to talk about this and vote for it. This is something, it's right in the center of town. It's going to be multiple purposes. Open space, Larry said about what's used, so open space, recreation, all historical preservations. We can use all these categories. Also, housing is one of the biggest challenges we've had since we've been on. So people have to come forward with some housing applications if they want to. We had one this year. It looked pretty good, and the applicant just fell short because we asked for a little bit of information about their organizational structure. But the members of the committee are ready to give them the money for the housing, but it wasn't good enough to make muster to come to town meeting. So, but if there is any housing projects, certainly bring them forward.
Thank you, John. Also, John, I want to thank you for all your years of service. I know you're getting through on multiple boards, and you've put in a tremendous amount of time. With that, is there any further discussion on Article 21? No? Good. Oh, no? Okay, we're good. Article 21 then. All those in favor of Article 21, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Article 21 carries.
Mr. Moderator.
Ms. Zinal.
I move we take up Article 22.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to take up Article 22 is in your handout.
Mr. Moderator.
Ms. Zinal.
I move that the town vote to appropriate by transfer from the Community Preservation Budgeted Reserve Account upon the recommendation of the Community Preservation Committee the sum of $185,898 to document, assess condition, clean, move, restore, and prepare a summary of the Cutter Farm Museum contents, including digitizing into a state-of-the-art searchable database the contents of the Farm Museum, and to create a long-term conservation plan for Farm Museum items, to identify needed repairs, structural upgrades, weatherization, and conservation, including identifying grants to protect the building and its contents in the future, under the guidance of the Hatfield Historical Society, said funds to be expended under the direction of the Community Preservation Committee.
You've heard the motion made and seconded under Article 22. Is there any discussion? Okay, just make sure he's not coming up. Okay. If not, all those in favor of Article 22, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Article 22 passes.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Jaworski.
I move we take up Article 23.
The motion has been made and seconded to take up Article 23 is in your handout.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Jaworski.
I move that the town vote to appropriate to transfer the sum of $12,500 from the Community Preservation Open Space Reserve Account and the sum of $12,500 from the Community Preservation Budgeted Reserve Account upon the recommendation of the Community Preservation Committee to create a historic walking tour of significant homes, locations, and events along Main Street, Maple Street, Elm Street, Prospect Street, and School Street, including the purchase of 12 to 15 bronze plaques, Hatfield's history,
Hold up.
brown plaques with descriptions of historical events, important people, and significant locations as they relate to the Hatfield history relate to Hatfield's history under guidance of the Hatfield Historical Commission. Said funds to be expended under the direction of the Community Preservation Committee.
You've heard the motion made and seconded under Article 23. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor of Article 23, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed, nay? Article 23 passes.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Gagnon.
I move we take up Article 24.
The motion has been made and seconded to take up Article 24 is in your handout.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Gagnon.
I move that the town vote to authorize the Select Board to file a petition with the General Court to obtain legal legislation set forth in Article 24 of the warrant, such petition to include other additional provisions as the Select Board deems appropriate, provided that the General Court may make clerical or editorial changes of form only to the bill, unless the Select Board approves amendments to the bill before enactment by the General Court. Select Board being hereby authorized to approve amendments which shall be within the scope of the general public objectives of this petition.
You've heard the motion made and seconded under Article 24. Is there any discussion? Yeah, Larry.
This is the golf cart article, by the way, that nobody has the text to unless they have the original warrant. And the text of it, I mean, this is a pretty bizarre home rule petition we're doing, but I guess there's support from the Select Board by it. But in the text of it, it talks about a bylaw, and maybe the police chief wants to speak about this because there's no enforcement without a bylaw. And also, it's a very somewhat restrictive, I wonder if it's a solution for something, looking for a problem, because there are abuses of golf carts primarily on Main Street, and they're often underage drivers, so they would actually not be allowed to have those carts because this bylaw, the home rule petition, requires a licensed driver with insurance and with a registered golf cart, includes lights. So people should know what they're voting for here. This is a really bizarre, I don't think there's another one in the state of Massachusetts. This text came from Florida and the villages. So maybe we're heading in that direction. But I don't know if there's going to be any discussion on this before we vote on this. But
the board or Mike? Mike?
I was just going to say, Chief Mike has been working on this for quite a while with our state reps. And, you know, we use the word golf cart, but when we think about when we grew up, the first photocopy machines, we called them Xerox machines. Well, today everybody can use their printer at home and their copier. Well, essentially the word is golf cart, but they're really electric carts. We're seeing electric cars, electric vehicles. You know, you travel around the country and you're seeing more and more electric things everywhere. Well, this is to try to put in, Chief Mike's worked so hard to write up a whole set of rules and regs and inspection services for golf carts in this town. And we're the first one in Massachusetts trying to set the standard for all other towns to do this. So it's pretty remarkable about what our police chief is trying to do. When you read through what he's got in there, sure, there's some rules and regs and there's some inspections they're going to do here. But when we take a look at a lot of the little electric two-wheelers, we see these kids going by, we see the electric bicycles flying by. Well, I'm sorry, but for us, some of us getting older, it's an electric cart. Call it what you want. But in Massachusetts, the only time a golf cart can cross the street is from one golf course to another. Well, in Massachusetts, we're trying to come up with a way that just within town roads, not the state road, not Route 5, but within town roads, it's a way for some people with special needs, people that can't walk, people with mobility issues, to be able to use these in a safe way. But it also helps avoid kids that don't have a license from driving. We don't want a farm truck taking out somebody. So Chief Mike's worked with a lot of rules, and he's working with our state legislators to try to be the first town in Massachusetts to try to do this in the most safe manner possible. So I would urge to pass this for a lot of reasons. Thank you.
Chief DeKoschek in the back. Again, Chief is not a resident, but similar to other department heads, have asked him to speak on this article if necessary.
Hi, all. So Larry's right, this is bizarre. But it's bizarre in the sense that we're the first to do this. This came about because I'm sure everyone has noticed that there's golf carts on our roads during the summer. And with that being said, we have noticed just a multitude of safety issues with that. Young children driving, for one, driving around at night. We've even heard reports of people drinking while driving. So this is something that many residents like to do, is the golf carts. And quite frankly, the golf carts are safe for the most part. They're a low-speed vehicle. So the police department can't allow that to happen. It's against the law to drive your golf cart. The fines are, just to drive your golf cart down the road, you're talking hundreds in fines, and we would have to tow your golf cart. So, very inconvenient. So this was a way to work with the legislature and the town to come up with a bylaw to regulate this so that we have some teeth behind it, so that we can regulate the fact that, yes, you need to be a licensed driver, no drinking and driving. Essentially, whatever it takes to drive a regular car is going to be the same with a golf cart, along with some extra safety features. Also in there is you can't modify a golf cart. Golf carts typically go 18 miles an hour. They're under 20-mile-an-hour vehicles. So anything modified to go beyond that would be in violation of the bylaw. So tonight you're not voting to allow this. You're allowing the select board to present this to the state legislature to create a law specific to just Hatfield. That's essentially what you're doing. You're not actually voting to allow the golf cart. You are voting to allow the golf carts but it has to still go to the state legislature in order for that approval to happen.
Yeah, it's quite a process
It's a huge process, but again, this is to regulate this so that there's some safety behind it. Because right now, I'm sure Friday night there's going to be some ticketing happening with golf carts because the concert's going on, because you're not allowed to drive them. This was a way to make that happen for the residents. That's all it is.
So I think it's kind of, I think that the ability to drive these carts around is actually probably pretty unique to Hatfield. There probably aren't many communities that have roads that would really lend themselves to this. So we know that residents are really enjoying using golf carts. I actually have people who stop and visit me at my house sometimes on their golf carts, and it's a really nice thing. But we do need to make sure that they're being operated safely, not being operated by, people without driver's licenses, young kids, or safety. So it's a compromise of how we can maintain sort of this thing that started here with golf carts, but do it safely.
Yeah, it really comes down to, it's not going to be we can't have the Wild West with golf carts. So this is a way to regulate it. And the rules they're strict because they're essentially the laws that you already follow with driving your vehicle.
And yes, they would be registered with the town, whatever fee that was charged, and yes, they would have to be insured as well, because if you hit another vehicle and, you know, somebody needs to pay for that, so. Okay?
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief. I know you did a lot of work on this.
Any other discussion? Oop, okay. Question over here, or yes, no? Yeah, Adam.
Just a quick question. Is the town open to any liability by continuing to turn a blind eye to this? Like, do we need to act, or, you know, for protection of the town?
Chief's coming from behind you again. He's coming after you, Adam.
Well, I would say absolutely. So the reason that we are cracking down on it is because we can't ignore it. It's your police department's ignoring a crime at that point in time. So if this is something that townspeople want, they have to vote for it. If not, then we just continue to march like we always have, and that's tickets and fines and towing. There's not much else we can do because we can't ignore it.
My name is Ken Diamond. I live at 115 Elm Street, Unit 17B. I saw this warrant in the list, and I'm a frequent walker, as some other people from my condo are down Elm Street, sometimes at early morning, noontime, on a nice afternoon. And one thing you notice is the traffic from 18-wheelers and even large pickup trucks leave a great vortex. And I can't imagine, you know, Hatfield, I've only lived here 4 years, and I appreciate how welcoming the town is. And actually, the chief who helped me for more than a couple times at 2 in the morning get my wife off the floor because she'd fallen there and I couldn't lift her up. So I have high regard for the chief. But Hatfield might have the distinction of being the first town in Massachusetts to have a golf cart law like the one that's being proposed. But I'd hate to see Hatfield be the first town in Massachusetts to have a road accident with a car and a golf cart, or trauma, or God forbid, somebody losing their life. So when I was reading this warrant, I just Googled road accidents with golf carts. And one of the things that rolled out from this list of Google hits was there's already in Florida, a flourishing industry of injury lawyers. If you've been involved in the golf cart accident, call Willie, who never loses, that kind of thing. So I would just propose that the town think about this, that you might be the other kind of distinction, being the first in Hatfield. Thank you.
Hi, Scott, Main Street. Just curious, who insures golf carts?
Sorry, what was that?
Who insures golf carts? You said we had to have insurance? Anyone? Geico does?
We'll stay out of promoting insurance.
Yeah, right. They can be insured. They can be insured.
My second last time up, but we've already checked, and there are multiple insurance companies that will. It's about $75 a year. And, you know, golf carts aren't going to be driving down the middle of the road and stopping a trailer truck and a truck. It's mostly to drive on the side of the road, and it's only within, not on state roads. It's not on Route 91. It's none of that. It's, you know, it's just trying to put some sanity to what people have been doing and making it a legal thing that they have to follow. So they're going to be licensed drivers driving them. No different than a car.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to move forward. So all those in favor of Article 24, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Nay. Article 24 is passed.
Mr. Moderator,
Ms. Zinal.
I move we take up Article 25.
The motion has been made and seconded to take up Article 25 is in your handout.
Mr. Moderator,
Ms. Zinal.
I move that the town vote to amend the Town of Hatfield zoning bylaws, Section 6.2, Open Space Development, and all related subsections of the Hatfield zoning bylaws as set forth in the annual town meeting warrant.
You've heard the motion made and seconded under Article 25. Is there any discussion? If not, sorry.
I don't even know where to begin with these next two articles, but yes, we need housing. We need low-income housing. We need public housing. But some of the solutions And I suggest that this particular one, as well as even the open space one and even accessory apartments, is simply a revenue generator at the expense of of the character of the town by squeezing in houses and just generating houses that are not necessarily what public housing or low-income housing or affordable housing is. It's a much bigger problem than these two try to solve. And I think one example, go up to North Hatfield Road by the railroad tracks. You'll see a real convoluted development of several houses. The backyards are in other people's front yard with a shared driveway. And these two articles are heading in that direction of, I think, really probably a good profit incentive for some landowners, but could have a very serious impact on the town, and also that these new houses will generate students that now fill our already burdened school system and other expenses for the town. It's not over 55 housing. So I think that we should really think carefully about this, and I'd almost rather see it in a more macro, global plan for the town of the housing issue, which it actually would include Capewalk because of its age and its location. So if anything, maybe these could be viable articles, but for now, I wonder if they shouldn't be delayed until there's a more comprehensive plan, which is actually something we're in the middle of.
I think Steph is right behind you and going to be able
Thank
to address
you so
some of
much,
that.
Larry. So both of these articles are actually going to be recommendations from our comprehensive plan, which we are currently working on and wrapping up, and should be the process of adopting a master plan, an updated master plan, comprehensive plan. They'll come before the planning board, and then we will also ceremoniously bring it to the select board, and we're anticipating that around August, so that's exciting. And we'll be outside town hall next week for election day, so if you want to pick our brains, look at what we've been working on, we'll be there. And so I'm Stephanie Slish, I'm chair of the planning board, and I'm here to say that first of all, this bylaw and the next one, or this warrant article and the next one, these are updates to bylaws that are already on the books. Our zoning bylaw updates have to be brought to town meetings, so that's why we're here. We spent a lot of time on these updates. This particular open space development bylaw, the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission made Hatfield their case study on this bylaw over the course of 2020. We reviewed the recommended changes, had them on our agenda for the last year, had public meeting to incorporate this feedback. It really furthers the goals of the open space and recreation plan. It furthers the goals of the town's master plan and comprehensive plan. It maintains the rural character and the land use patterns in which small villages contrast with open space and farmlands. I'll explain a little bit more in a minute. And the main purpose of this bylaw is to allow for greater flexibility and creativity of the design of residential subdivisions. So like, what is an open space development? I'm sorry, there's no elevator pitch for this, so bear with me. It's an alternative form of a traditional subdivision, which is your typical cul-de-sac development. For example, if there's a 10-acre parcel of farmland, that's all developable, no wetlands or steep slopes. A traditional subdivision in our current bylaws would allow for approximately 10 one-acre lots with 200 feet of frontage for each lot. And that's by, like, we can't say like no to that. That's a landowner could do that. So in open space development, we were push developers to look at that instead of a traditional subdivision, because an open space development for that same 10-acre parcel would still allow for 10 lots, but you have to preserve half of the lot in perpetuity as open space, as farmland, whatever. And then those 10 lots would still be able to be built on the remaining 5 acres. So you're creating just denser development and preserving half of that space that would have just been, frankly, giant lawns in a traditional subdivision. For the developer, this makes building cheaper to bring in less infrastructure. Instead of bringing power, pavement, other utilities across 10 acres, you just do it over 5 acres. So we already have this bylaw in the books, a version of this, and so we are just asking tonight to tweak some of this, because since this has been on the books for 15-ish years or so, it's only been used once. So the changes that we are proposing, we are recommending increasing the required percentage of preserved open space from 40% to 50% of the developable land. We are removing lot size requirements to allow for more flexibility. Lots will still need to meet setback requirements and applicable Title V septic and/or well requirements, and there's certain lot size requirements if they're in an aquifer recharge zone. We also, the other tweaks with this is we are including density bonuses, which do not exist in our current bylaw. So basically, if more than 50 of the land is preserved in the proposed plan, they could get an extra lot. If a historic structure is preserved, they could get an extra lot. If one of the units is restricted in perpetuity to be occupied by a moderate or low-income household, then an extra unit would be allowed. And it's important to note that we would not allow more than 20% of the units and bonuses than allowed in a traditional subdivision plan. So back to that 10-acre example, we wouldn't allow for more than 2 extra units on the 5 acres. I know that was a lot. Like I said, there's no elevator pitch, but I think it's important for folks to know what's out there and like what an alternative to a traditional cul-de-sac subdivision where we would have to require 1 acre of land. This is the only alternative to allow new housing development or new housing in general to be on smaller than 1 acre with 200 feet of frontage. Thank you.
Thank you, Steph, and also thank you to the comprehensive plan for their work that has been going on for several years.
Kenneth Diamond, 115 Elm Street. The ADU warrant is also connected to the age and dementia-friendly program in Hatfield. It's a program that as I understand it, every municipality in Massachusetts is required to have to do exactly that, make their municipality friendly to our aging population, especially our dementia population, like adding street signs where there aren't, even for as small a town as Hatfield. Confusing to new residents, I'll tell you. So in speaking in favor of this warrant, it's already underway, and it's particularly connected to the first goal of it is enhancing the housing development in the form of ADUs. Because there's already, I know just from my friends at Capewalk, there's already a pretty long waiting list for that kind of housing. So I just wanted to mention that.
Okay. Any further discussion? Mark? Yeah, we'll get Mark and then I'll go over to Sean. Yep.
Mark Gillot, 70 Elm Street. I just want to congratulate the planning board for bringing this forward. Both of these bylaws have been on the books in one shape or form for many years now. I think the accessory apartment bylaw, as an architect, I've designed a lot of accessory apartments in surrounding towns. They're great things for people, especially young people who have to buy a house. And yes, they do produce income, of course. But these are smaller units that are attached to the larger house. And it does provide some rental income so that younger people who want to buy into Hatfield can actually afford to do it. And people who are older on fixed income, if they could convert part of their house to a rental or another ADU.
Mark, I'm just going to, because I think we kind of started to stray a little bit and we merged the two articles a bit. So right now, so people are okay. Not confused. I want to make sure we're on the open space article, not the ADU yet. So I know they kind of got talked a little bit, but this is on the open space article, and the ADU article will be the next one. So I just don't want people to get confused on what we're voting on.
I'll just say never mind. And but the open space article, let me speak to that too. That's also, I think, a great article, because along with a developer comes into town and he pretty much is confronted with the idea that he or she has to preserve some open space along with the development, and to try to create a more dense development that doesn't sprawl across a lot of Hatfield's open space. So I think it's great.
Thank you. Sean?
So I just wanted to mention one thing that probably applies to both these questions at one level or another, but the idea that attracting new students to town would overburden our school is completely not correct. We're in desperate need of students, and the over 55 housing, I feel like the zoning that has allowed that and encouraged that has been a detriment to the town. We are, just to give you a statistical example, in our last 16 years, our state foundation aid, which comes from students who live and go to school in town, has fallen from 17% of our net school spending to 10%. And that's a direct result of losing children, and not children leaving to go to other schools, losing population, young population of school-age children, and having to rely on school choice students, which are wonderful for filling gaps, but not wonderful as a way to build your entire school system. And so I think it would really it's very important to us that we address this in some way. We need more school-age children in our schools.
Any further discussion on Article 25? Okay, and I just want to note for both this article and 26, there was a misprint. These are simple majority votes. There has been a change to town council formula, so there has been a change in the laws, so these are both simple majority votes. So with that, all those in favor of Article 25, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Article 25 is passed.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Jaworski.
I move we take up Article 26.
The motion has been made and seconded to take up Article 26 in your handout.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Jaworski.
I move that the town vote to amend the Town of Hatfield zoning bylaws, Section 3.4.4, accessory apartments of the Hatfield zoning bylaws as set forth in the annual town meeting warrant.
You've heard the motion made and seconded under Article 26. Is there any discussion?
I just want to take a moment. Again, this is something that's already in our bylaws. We have currently allowed for attached accessory dwelling units. This would be just a detached option, but basically is the same bylaw that we've had on the books since 2019, but is now allowing detached owner-occupied dwelling units. And I just wanted to take a moment to thank our assistant town planner, Janelle Franklin, who's really been instrumental in helping us pass these. And she's moving on after tonight's town meeting. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank her and all of her service for the last year in bringing these two articles to town meeting and all the support that she's provided the planning board. So thank you.
Joe?
I'll be in trouble. I promised my wife I would sit a lot through this, but I just want to thank the planning board and their staff's guidance. I've been to almost all, I think all but one of their working groups on these items, and they have spent hundreds and hundreds of hours on this project and trying to help our kids be able to get homes in this town and people, younger families coming in, as Sean said, that we so badly need. They've worked hard. They've answered so many varieties of questions and people's concerns. And I just hope this goes through very quickly. Thank you.
Okay, hang on. I think we have a procedural, there may be an issue. Sorry, bear with us 1 second. No, you can't, because you're not a registered, so either Steph or Doug can. Okay, so we're gonna have a TV timeout. We're gonna have an amendment here. There was one catch that got caught here. Thank you, Janelle, for catching it. It's just related to, I believe, to an approval, but bear with us for 1 second and we'll get there. And again, while they're working on that, Steph had mentioned the comprehensive plan, and that group has put in a tremendous amount of hours really working to look at where we're going as a town and our zoning and all of that. It used to be called the master plan for people that are familiar with that. So certainly encourage you to check out the information they have next week at town elections and see everything that's going on with that. planning board will request it. Okay, I've had a request, so Janelle Franklin's our assistant town planner, so I've had a request for her to be able to speak to this as well. So similar, just asking for your permission to allow Janelle to speak to what this change is and the reason that they're going to be making it. So everyone in favor of that? Anyone opposed? So all those in favor of allowing Janelle to speak, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm Janelle Franklin. I'm the assistant planner here in the town of Hatfield. And right now, there is no major change happening. As the bylaw is written right now, it would be the building inspector, Kyle, who would make the determination if all the criteria was met for a accessory dwelling unit. That decision is subjective, though, and he cannot make that decision, so we are changing it to add that the planning board will make that decision, and that is the only change that is happening. So,
okay, so they're just
small
writing
potatoes.
They're just writing it out. We do have a form and process that has to be followed. 26. And I appreciate you all bearing with us. We're going to make it in the 10 o'clock. I could not break Joe's jinx of saying we had not gone to a second night. So. Okay, thank you everyone, we appreciate it. So Stephanie is proposing, and Elena will read this, and bear with us.
Hold on. Is it just after I move the town vote to amend the housing bylaw? Provided that's just at the end? Yeah, I can. Do you want to?
Okay, I stand corrected. Town council is going to read.
Hi, I'm Tom Mullen. I'm the town council. I'm not a resident, so I can't make a motion, but we've had to write out the amendment that Ms. Sliz will make. And it is to amend the main motion to add, provided that in section 3.4.4.c, after the words, quote, provided that, end quote, are inserted the words, quote, the planning board determines that, end quote. And I leave it to Ms. Sliz to explain the significance.
So Stephanie, first, you want to make, Steph, will you officially make that motion?
Yeah, can I make the motion that Attorney Mullen just read?
Okay, and is there a second? Okay, motion made and seconded to take up that amendment. So now we'll discuss that amendment.
Yeah, do you want to?
Mr. Moderator, through you to everyone else, the change is required because, first of all, for clarity, I believe the original language didn't necessarily specify who was making the determination as to whether the specific conditions were met. But the Attorney General in a recent ruling said that, say, a building inspector cannot make a determination that is a subjective decision based on criteria in the zoning bylaw. Only an adjudicatory board like the ZBA or the planning board can do that. So that's the reason for the clarification.
Any further discussion on the motion to amend?
Will this be like a site plan review or like the process that we go through for subdivision review where the abutters have to be notified and there's, what is the procedure?
I'm operating from memory. First of all, Doug Finn, my wife is packing my bags at 15 King Street. Operating from memory, if you have a property that is leased 1.5 acres, 60,000 square feet, if you are proposing a detached ADU or an attached ADU that complies with setbacks, and if it clearly complements the neighborhood, or I'm sorry, never mind that. If it does all that, then you come into the planning board. It is a simple review of your proposed site plan. The planning board checks it against the criteria. If you meet the criteria, it's approved. If for some reason it doesn't meet any of the criteria and you want to pursue it, then it's treated like a special permit. Abutters will be notified, there will be notification in the paper, and there will be a public hearing where folks will have an opportunity to review and comment.
Thank you. Okay, any further discussion on the amendment to Article 26? Okay, so we're going to vote on the amendment first, and then we go back to the main motion. So all those in favor of the amendment to Article 26, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Okay, the amendment carries. So now we are on the amended Article 26. Is there any further discussion on the amended version of Article 26? Okay, with that, all those in favor of Article 26, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Article 26 is passed.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Gagnon.
I move we take up Article 27.
The motion has been made and seconded to take up Article 27 as in your handout.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Gagnon.
I move that the town vote pursuant to General Law, Chapter 40, Section 14, and all other enabling laws to authorize the Select Board to acquire by gift a permanent easement for the purpose of a concrete head wall and stone outlet protection shown as parcel HD 21 on a plan entitled Massachusetts Department of Transportation Highway Division Plan and Profile of Haydenville Road in the town of Whately, Williamsburg, dated November 16th, 2023, a copy of which is on file with the town clerk's office, as said, plan to be amended, as may be necessary or convenient in connection with the Haydenville Road Improvement Project in Whately.
You've heard the motion made and seconded under Article 27. Is there any discussion? Yep.
Mr. Moderator, what are we worrying about in Whately? I'm confused.
Okay. Someone
I
want to speak?
see the map and I see the road outlined in the map, and it goes from Whately to Williamsburg. Is that correct?
Someone want to speak to that?
Keith Bardwell's here.
I don't understand what Hatfield has to do with Whately.
Keith Bardwell's
I'm
here
confused.
from Whately.
We do have somebody from out of town who can speak to this, so we would ask Mr. Bardwell to come forward.
Okay, so this is a representative from the town of Whately here to speak on it. Again, as a non-registered voter, we need your permission to allow him to speak. So is everyone in favor of allowing Mr. Bardwell to speak from the town of Whately?
Yes.
Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you, Keith. And I don't like seeing that on your arm. I've had that. That's not fun.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. It's a good question, and quite frankly, this is just a matter of formality. The land is in Hatfield. It is owned by the city of Northampton, right along the reservoir, the Mountain Street Reservoir. But because the land is in Hatfield and it is owned by the city of Northampton, for us to do the project and also this town of Williamsburg may need to come back and do this again in a couple of years when they get their section ready. But basically, Article 97 is a state section of the laws that require any land that's taken out of from the city of Northampton, or any town for that matter, to be used for a different purpose. And in this case, it's 216 square feet in this location, which is not much, you know, it's about 14 by 16 feet. Presently, the catch basin that's there, the water is already running out the outlet that's there, but because it needs to be moved back off the edge of the road a little bit, we need to take the land from the city of Northampton. And in doing so, we will be giving the city of Northampton land in kind, in addition to many other pieces of property that we need to take back in Whately. We'll be giving them the same amount of land in kind, so they're not losing out anything. They're okay with that, but it's, again, it's just a technicality and a formality because it's in the town of Hatfield. There's no cost to the town of Hatfield. There's no bearing on it to the town of Hatfield, but it's in Hatfield, the land is. Okay. Does anybody else have, did I answer the question? Thank you. Okay.
Any further discussion under Article 27? All right. Well, with that, all those in favor of Article 27, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Article 27 is passed.
Mr. Moderator,
Ms. Zinal.
I move we take up Article 28.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to take up Article 28 as in your handout.
Mr. Moderator,
Ms. Zinal.
I move that the town vote to hear any and all reports which have to do with the welfare of the town.
You've heard the motion made and seconded under Article 28. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Moderator, I would just like to take a moment to acknowledge and thank a few people in the room. First, I want to start with the Finance Committee. They're a really great group to work with. We spend about 6 months getting ready for tonight, and I just want to say how much I appreciate their expertise. We rely on them very heavily, and they do a really great job, so I want to acknowledge them. I want to acknowledge our town clerk, our other town employees that really we relied on a lot tonight for information. Chief DeKoschak, Marlene Mashonsky, Phil Genovese, John Novak, and Chief Flaherty. And then, of course, I want to thank the residents who give up an entire night to come and do this business. We do appreciate you, and we appreciate how much thought you put into this and the questions. We do appreciate it. So that was all I just wanted. And thank you to you for your first night. And thank you to my colleagues. It's a pleasure to serve with them. I really hope I didn't forget anybody. The school committee, the school committee who worked with us on this process as well.
Before we conclude, I would like to, as we've done in the past, I would like to take a moment of silence for all those who are serving in our military to return home safely, for all of our aging and since passed veterans that have given so much. We are all here safely today because of all of you. Also for all the residents and the town officials who have passed over the last year. Unfortunately, we've had many. They help make this town what it is and the town that we all love and live in and why we're here. Also, I want to, again, thank all of our public safety and everyone, all of our public servants for everything that they do for us many times when we need them most. So if we can just take a moment and honor and remember all of those. Thank you. Please remember, next Tuesday is voting, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. at Town Hall. Please vote. As we've seen many times in the past years, every vote truly does count, so we appreciate that. I do want to echo Diana's statements. Special thank you to John and his team. We were reminiscing about years ago when I was in high school and behind the camera, so it's kind of come full circle, but certainly appreciate everything that John and his team do. And again, as Diana said, everyone that helped contribute, and most of all to all of you. This truly is your night. You put in the time, and this is, as I mentioned earlier, one of the purest forms of democratic government. So I thank everyone for your time, and with that, I hereby dissolve this annual town meeting.